hey, let's go make and can tomato juice using our frozen tomatoes, y'all.
You see they're hard as a rock.
It has not been quite 24 hours. It's probably more like closer to 12, but I don't want to wait 24 hours. So I went ahead and pulled these out. They're still fairly frozen, but yeah, even these little ones, they're still fairly frozen. So I brought these out and I've got them sitting on my countertop. I'm gonna let these sit. They should unthaw in roughly about an hour. You can also put them in a sink of cool water and let them unthaw that way. But I think for now, I'm just gonna leave them like this. Okay, here they are. And there's, as you see, quite a bit of water that has come out of these things. And I'm gonna show you how, golly, some of these are still froze, man. But you just see how easy the skins are to peel off. Ooh, that cold though, man, it hurts my hands. But really, I have a food mill, so I don't know why I put that one in there. So I don't necessarily need to peel these skins off because I have a food mill, and that will, when I'm grinding it, that will remove the seeds, the peels, and a lot of that. So I'm going to remove some stuff that might look okay. So I'm going to put this in its base and turn it on and let these start to cook down. I know I've got to go to the doctor this morning. I've got freshman orientation this morning. This morning has been a mess. I'm an emotional wreck. But anyway, I'm going to let these cook down. We're going to come back home. Hopefully they'll be cooked down enough to where I can start kind of working with them. So let's get these in the thing. Okay, they are in the food mill. All right, I've got the insert inside its base now. Got this set on 250. I may turn it up to 300 once I get back home. I don't want to turn it up too high yet while I'm gone. And now I'm going to tell y'all something. If these were fresh tomatoes that I was throwing in here, I would probably go ahead and at least core them and cut them in quarters. But you can't hardly core them once they're froze and then you unthaw them like this. And for the most part, they are so broken down by the freezing process and then the unthawing process. They are pretty much broken down. For fresh tomatoes, I would at least quarter them, try to core them, and then you add just a little bit of water in here so that way they don't stick. And then you're going to cook about 3 hours. Now these may have to cook a little bit longer because where they were froze, so we'll kind of see. I'm going to put the lid on it, and then when we come back home from the doctor, then I'll check them and see what they're looking like. All right, how I'm going to get tomato juice and tomato sauce out of the same batch. I'm taking just a sifter, putting it over top of my saucepan. I've folded this. This is like a cheesecloth. It's not exactly a cheesecloth. I forget what this is called, but anyway, it's like a cheesecloth. So I folded it over, and to be able to get some of these impurities out, I'm just putting that in there because you can see some of the impurities. And all I do is every so often I will ladle out the water. And it will turn into like a thinner tomato juice. And it's not like a tomato juice that you're going to want to drink. It's not going to be like that, but it's going to be something that you can use just to cook in. And if it's still a little bit too thin for your liking, once you get your tomatoes ground up, just a little bit of some of that tomato sauce or whatever to some of this liquid, and to thicken that, you know, your tomato juice up just a little bit more. But that's all I do is periodically go in here and dip out the juice. Welcome back to the next day. I had to stop where I was at yesterday. I put my tomatoes in the refrigerator. I just pulled them out. I put them in the microwave just a couple minutes just to warm them up slightly. And now that I know how to set this up properly, it should go a little easier. So I'm just going to continue to put my tomatoes through my food mill and we'll see what happens. I've had this food mill probably going on 3 years, but I hadn't used it. I was afraid to, it's a long story. All you do is put your tomatoes in there and then just twist it. And there you go. Which that's a little thinner, but when I add it all together, it should be thick. That's tomato juice, so I'm also looking at this from yesterday, which some seeds went through. I'll probably go try to redo that because some seeds did go through. It's probably because I had the bottom inside out, didn't realize it. I mean, wrong side, upside down, whatever. So I'll probably rerun this through the food mill if I can talk this morning. So I'm just going to continue putting all my tomatoes through the food mill, and then I will come back. Okay, I want to show you what that looked like before I carry on. But you want to keep grinding this until there's pretty much just pulp. All that is pretty much is pulp. That's skin, seeds, and that's about it. So you want to just go and go and go until you don't think there's anything left in there. And then that can be thrown away. And if you have chickens, I'm pretty sure you can give this to chickens, but double check me because I could be wrong on that. The tomatoes will stick to the sides, so you have to periodically, sometimes I'll just go backwards and then go back forwards, but sometimes you physically have to go and shove it kind of down where it will get under that blade. I wanted to make sure, if you've never used a food mill, I wanted to explain that a little better. So you seen a few seconds ago that it was about up to here, roughly halfway full. You probably can't even tell what I'm doing. It was roughly about along in there, about halfway full, maybe a little more. But it wasn't 3/4 though. But this is what I have smushed it down to, so there's hardly anything left now. So I'm gonna throw that pulp away, get more tomatoes, and continue. That's what's left of the tomato skin, seeds, pits, all of that. And that is what is left. I've got this in my 2.5 quart bowl. Now let me talk to you a second. Okay, I want to clarify something that I said yesterday. I don't think that I explained that very well. When you're trying to make tomato sauce, you want it thicker. And really, it's best to use the Roma tomatoes for your tomato sauce, because the Roma tomatoes are like a paste tomato, and they don't have a lot of water, I guess you could say, in it. It's got more of a meaty part of the tomato instead of like the watery, seedy, gelatinous, I don't know, whatever you want to call that's in that middle that holds the seeds. It has less of that and more of the meat. Well, what I meant yesterday by taking the water and turning it into a tomato juice, if you've got tomatoes that are not like a paste tomato, like a Roma, if you've got like those big juicy yellow tomatoes that I put in mine, or even the little cherry tomatoes, they're not going to have as much water, obviously. But if you take something like that, or one of those big beefsteak tomatoes, or just your regular, I forgot what they're called, but like a stripey, Mr. Stripey or something like that. If you take those and you're trying to make your tomato sauce, it's going to be extremely, extremely watery. It's really not going to be sauce. If you're making sauce, if sauce is your goal, that's not going to make sauce. So what you do throughout the process of when you're trying to, whether you do, you can do a faster version and just cook down your tomatoes on the stove. Or if you want to do a little bit longer version, a slower version, and use like the big cooker or crock pot, as it goes, you will dip out that water. That water is going to be like a tomato juice. It's not going to be your full-on tomato juice, so don't think that. And I don't know how well I explained that yesterday. But you want to dip out that water, that way when your tomatoes are done, you are getting a thicker, tomato paste or tomato sauce or whatever. A lot of times people just, when they dip that water out, a lot of times people can throw that, will just throw that away. But you don't have to throw that away. You can use that, and it becomes like a very thin tomato juice, very thin. It's not like I said yesterday, it's not like a drinkable juice. It probably wouldn't be anything you want to drink, but it would be good like in soups or stews or some, you know, something that you need like a beef broth or a chicken broth. It would be similar, I guess, to tomato broth. So you can use it in place of that. So that's what I wanted to say and clarify. Well, and then secondly, this didn't put out as much as what I hoped. So that's just going to be, you know, it's 2.5 quart. Well, it's fitting in my 2.5 quart bowl, but it's going to be about 2 quarts. That's not a whole lot. So I'm thinking instead of trying to make this sauce, I will try to make it tomato juice. So I'm going to bring my tomato broth. I'm going to bring it back out, and I think I'm going to combine the two and then cook it down, cook all that down together and just make a tomato juice. I hope what I'm saying is making sense to you. If it's not making sense, please leave a comment down in the description box and ask me any question, and I'll do my best to answer, okay? So let's get back down. That I'm just throwing away. Like I said, I'm about positive you can give that to chickens if you have chickens. Okay, this is your tomato broth. That's what was coming out of the tomatoes. So as you can see, it's not real thick, it's not real tomatoey, and when you cook it down, of course, it's going to thicken up a little bit more. But that just makes like a tomato broth. But I think, like I said, I want to make just juice because, and with that tomato broth, if you want to call it that, you just add your lemon juice and your salt to your canning jars like you would if you were making tomato juice. All right, but see with this, it's kind of, to me, it's too thick for a juice, too thin for a sauce. So I think I'm just going to add it back together, and we're just going to make a tomato juice, and that way I'll get more out of my canning. I had to switch over to my Dutch oven because that pot was too small. So I've got my tomato broth in here, and then here is that. Okay, that's going to make some lovely tomato juice. All right, I'm going to turn about medium high, and I'm going to let this cook down. I'm going to double check. I'm about positive it's 10 minutes. You can always look at the Center for Home Preservation. I'll put that in the description box. I have any of my canning videos. I have put that link in the description box. That way that you can always refer back to that link and make sure that you are following safe practices, you know, the guidelines that we should use for canning. This will probably at least make, I'm guessing, 5 quarts. Tell them hi, Benji. Tell everybody hi. And say, like my mommy's video, and share, and subscribe, so that way you can see more of my cuteness. I went back and double checked, and it just said, return to a bowl, and then pour them in your jars. So I'm going to bring this to a bowl, and then I'll probably turn it down a little bit until I get my jars and my canning and all my setup ready, and then it'll be good to go. Got my setup. I've got the tomato juice coming to a bowl. Then I've got, like I always do, I've got my water, and I have it on simmer. I've got my flats in here, my funnel, my lid, the magnetized lid lifter, Lord of April, my Pokey Joe, which I know there's another name for it, but I can't think what it is. And then, and if you watch The Needy Homesteader, then you know where I got that. And then, of course, my ladle. And then the ladle, I had a stainless steel, and who knows where it's went. So that's starting to boil. I've got my canner ready. It's washed. I've got clean water in it. And my jars have been washed in the dishwasher, so they are clean and sterile. I'm going to probably put 7 in there. I think it's only going to take about 5. But I'm going to go ahead and put 7 just to be safe. And we'll go from there. Be careful. This water is already starting to get hot. When you go to put your jars in, you kind of got to let them feel as they go. I'll see, it's hard to see in hot. I probably am not doing the best job. This one's always the hardest. Sometimes you have to. But see, that's the reason you have to go ahead and pre-fill. Let me put you on the tripod. Probably can't see as well because you're kind of on the other side of my stove, but and obviously I'm gonna have to add more water to this. There we go. A little bit more. We'll need a little bit more. That water is only about right there. So you need at least about an inch above the jars. Okay, that's probably pretty good. Now I'm just waiting to get everything ready. For everything to be ready, I should say. You're going to see me get my jars out. I will caution you, you've got to use extreme caution when you're trying to lift these babies out. Use what you need to help you. If you're not careful, and I had oopsie, and I had someone leave me a comment that she got burnt one time doing this because the water likes to roll down. Yes, it does. So you've got to use extreme caution pulling your jars out. But now my jars have not been in here the 10 minutes. I usually try to sterilize my jars in there for 10 minutes, let them boil 10 minutes. For one, I've washed them in the dishwasher, so they were sterilized from that. Always use something to help you grip that bottom. And especially if you're not real strong anymore. I've lost my strength. Anyway, for two, these will process for 40 minutes. And you got something that's processing for longer than 10 minutes, even if your jar hasn't been sterilized, but it is clean. If it's in there and it's processing longer than 10 minutes, then it's going to sterilize the jar anyway. But for two, I like to put my jars in here. That way I know how much water I'm going to need. There's nothing more aggravating than getting all your jars done, ready, go to put in here, and you don't have enough water. Then you have to pour more water over top. Then it takes it a bit to come back to boiling. So this lets me know I've already got the right amount of water. Okay, like I said, and I also turn the water down until I can get back to it. But just be careful, please. Watch the water, how it's running out. Make sure it's not going to run down and burn you. I'm going to carefully, that's a little hot. Let me get some pot holders. I'm taking this over to my counter that's got the big thick towel on it. Oh, mercy, that's heavy. All right, now I'm going to take this over. All right, I've got this pickling salt. You want a salt that does not have iodine in it. So it's going to be 1 teaspoon per quart. It's very important. It is bottled lemon juice, not fresh lemon juice.
But you use 2 tablespoons per pint, 1 tablespoon per quart of the bottled lemon juice.
The pH is the same in your bottle. If you take a fresh lemon, the pH may not be the same. So that's why it's important to use bottled lemon juice, not fresh lemons. All right, next, and I've got my water with the vinegar and my paper towel, it's over here. Okay, next, we want 1/2 inch headspace. The lemon juice, if you don't have lemon juice, you can use vinegar or you can use the powdered citric acid. Okay, I believe that's 1/2 inch. Now I've told you the 1/4 inch is that top line, the 1/2 inch is that second line, if you don't have something to measure. All right, you still want to go in there with something, even though this is a liquid. And just kind of, whoops, and there I go getting it everywhere. Just kind of stir around somewhat and try to release some of those air bubbles. I am going to try to scoop out a little bit of that foam. And then if I've lowered my, which I probably have, just by a little bit. Okay. All right. Now, like any other canning I've taught you or you've seen me do. Oh, and if y'all recall, I said I had a thing that kind of helped me hold my jars when it was super hot. This is it. So I'm gonna around here. And just make sure that that rim is wiped really well. Then you're gonna put your lid on it. Flat. Sorry, I always want to call the flat the lid. So you're gonna put your flat on it. And your rim. Now this is where it gets hot to try to tighten that ring. Now you want it to where you feel the resistance. Then you're just going to do a short. That's it. That's as tight as you want it. You don't want to go, you know, grip it. So, oops, hold on a second. I double checked on that foam, and it's just like with the jelly. You want to skim the foam or let it sit until the foam kind of goes away on its own. And all that is trapped air, but the trapped air can mess up the seal. You do want to skim the foam the best you can. Yeah, we're so good at the headspace. All right, so now we're going to wipe off the rim. Now listen, this foam that I've got here to the side, don't throw that away. Drink it or put it in the fridge. You know, add your little salt to it and drink it. Or like I said, put it in the fridge for later. Because it's still good. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just the air bubbles. And you can't really can with a bunch of air bubbles in your jars. And that's all. That's the whole point. Okay. All right, so I feel the resistance now, so I'm just gonna give it just one more little twist. And if you recall, I told you before, I try to balance it out. So I'll put one here, we'll go back there, then here, and then. All right, let me show you something else. I was not thinking, obviously. Thought I had enough water in there to go over my jars, and I do. Problem is, I think I've accidentally got too much water because when I go down, I think it's going to overfill. But good. I've got that water level lowered, and so it should be when I put everything in, it should be okay now. All right, I think this is going to be the last one. Okay, we are so close. I'm going to try to take this that was foamy.
Keep on doing that, you gon' see it, 'cause I only want you, yeah, 'cause I only want you.
It's most certainly dirtier than the rest of them because I made a mess with it. But I think it's gonna be okay. I'm gonna clean it while I let that foam surface and hopefully bust. But I think it'll be okay. I feel that it's gonna be fine. It's not completely loaded in bubbles, so I think it's gonna be all right. If nothing else, we'll just drink, you know, I'll use that one first. I went ahead and turned my stove back on high. Okay, my canner holds 7 quarts, but I had a feeling this would be 5 quarts, so I judged it pretty good, if I do say so myself. But like I was telling you earlier, where I'm trying to balance it, I've got the 4 here and the 5th one in the middle. Ordinarily, it would be 6 around and the 7th one in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and lower this. Hopefully the water level's okay, but you know, we can adjust that. Okay, as I go to lower this, I should be able to tell. Yep. Well, dag it on it, April.
Baby, yeah. want you. Baby, yeah, I only want you. Yeah, 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 yeah. Only want you.
Okay, that's roughly about an inch, so I think we're good now. All right, I've got that on high. I'm gonna put the lid back on. When it reaches a boil, then we're gonna boil this for 40 minutes. It's a lot longer processing time for this, but we're gonna boil it for 40 minutes. I gotta say, that little bit that was left in that bowl from the foam, you know, I had to use the rest of it to fill up that 5th quart, but there was still a little bit left, maybe a couple tablespoons. I have to say, it's pretty daggone good. I had a little salt. Well, I drank some without the salt, and then I added salt, and obviously it's better with salt, but I don't know, it made me think, ooh, that would make some really good tomato soup. I've never made tomato soup, and that just tasted so flavorful. I think when I get, hopefully, or I'm gonna go buy some, I haven't decided yet, but hopefully the next round of tomatoes that I think I'm gonna make tomato soup and just try something new. But some tomato soup with a big old grilled cheese, oh, that sounds awful good. I'm not on my water game today. I still had to take 2 cups out, but I think we're good now. It's still covering the jars. It's not splattering out on my stove. So, and we're at a full boil, and so, putting the lid back on. And we are going to cook this for 40 minutes. So I'm gonna set my timer for 40 minutes. If they were pints, it would be 35 minutes. So I've set my timer. I'm gonna let them boil for 40 minutes. And if you are fixing pints instead, you want to let it boil for 35 minutes. Now, double check your altitude. We are level with sea level. So I know for my state, I don't have to change the altitude. But if in your state, your altitude is higher, then your time will increase. And I will leave a link to that. I'll also try to leave that chart. I've done that before, but just always double check your altitude, because it may not be the same as mine and you may have to cook yours longer. But if you are at the 0 altitude level, then it is 40 minutes for pints, 35 minutes for quarts. Timer went off. Turn it off. Just let them sit there at least 5 minutes. Well, it's been longer than 10 minutes because I had to sit down and eat. But while I was eating, I heard one of them seal, actually. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what I do to put them up here. Go ahead. Here you go. You getting that okay? All right, I just take 2 tongs. And whew. I've been working with pints and jelly jars. They're a lot easier than quarts.
Baby, yeah, I only want you. Cause I only want you. Yeah.
So like with any other canning, check your flats, make sure that they have sealed, and wash your rings, wash your jars, and then put them to the side, dry them off, and mark what it is and the date. And like I've told you many times in my other videos, I leave the rings off. So that's up to you. But I was also saying, it's hard to tell in this lighting, but I think the combination of the big yellow tomatoes with the little red tomatoes almost made it look orangey, kind of like a carrot juice or something. But it was really good. So I appreciate you all watching this video. If you haven't subscribed yet, I really hope you do. My goal is to hit 500 subscribers, so I really hope that you become a part of this family. If you would, give me a like for this video. That just helps kind of push it out in the algorithm. And that's it. I hope you have a blessed rest of your day, and I will talk to you in the next one. Bye.